Hello and welcome. This is rooflemonger, my friends. The launch of Tekken 8 is not too far from now. There's a playable demo on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, and hey, maybe by the time you're watching this, the game might be already out. Lots of people are excited. It's the first numbered Tekken in quite some time. Tekken 7 lasted a long time. And a lot of people that are excited are people that are somewhat new to Tekken, including a lot of already established fighting game players, whether you play Street Fighter, whether you play Guilty Gear, whether you play Mortal Kombat, or whatever, right? Maybe you want to try the new Tekken because, hey, new fighting game, and that's good of a reason as any, absolutely. And here's the thing, there's really a good part to this. If you've played other fighting games, a lot of what you know will 100% carry over. You're still going to be doing your combos, there's still footsies, there's still spacing. If you want to get more advanced like setups and frame traps, all that still exists. But even though a lot will carry over, not everything will carry over. And that's exactly what this video is for. So if you're newer to Tekken, or maybe you're lapsed, haven't played in a good long while, but you're in the 2D fighting game scene, or just, just like fighting games in general, I'm here to help tell you what differentiates 3D fighting games, specifically Tekken for this video, but this should also help you for other 3D fighters. Not that there's gonna be a new 3D fighter that's not Tekken for a good while, but regardless, this video will be here to help you understand the differences between 2D fighting games and 3D fighting games. So there will be timestamps in the video, skip to whatever makes sense for you, leave a like if you could, like sincerely help the video, and let's start with some of the major differences between 2D fighting games and 3D fighting games. Now, the number one thing about 3D fighters you need to know if you come from 2D fighters is not the fact that it's 3D. Like, we'll get to it. It's kind of a big deal. Yes, absolutely. But that part, I guess you inherently understand, even if you don't know all the particulars, right? Here's what you need to know. This is attack heights. This is actually the most important thing for you to know going from 2D to 3D. Attack heights, simple enough on paper. We have highs, we have mids, we have lows. Sure, understandable, right? In 2D fighting games, usually we have mids, lows, and overheads, sometimes called highs too, right? That's generally how it goes. The big difference here is when you're playing pretty much any 2D fighting game, doesn't really matter what it is. If you're trying to be defensive, what is your natural state of defense? The crouch block, right? You hold down back, and whatever may happen, may happen. And if someone tosses an overhead your way, you'll stand and react to the overhead, but otherwise, crouch block will save you 90% of the time, right? Because it gets lows and it gets mids, that's all you need to know. And mids, they're boring, they're honest, right? Honest mids are the joke. Lows, that's why you're crouch blocking, so you don't get hit by the low. And overheads are generally the slowest attacks in the game. The thing in 3D fighters is you have to immediately get that out of your head. Crouch blocking all the time will 1000% get you killed. Why? So highs are highs and mids are mids, right? And actually, if you're stand blocking, if you got a low coming your way, you're gonna have to crouch block, right? So, okay, well, I'll just down back. The thing here that's really different is when you're crouching, highs go right over your head. Great, makes sense. Good defense, right? Why should I not crouch block? Because mids, all mids, are effectively overheads in the 2D parlance. So if you're crouch blocking all the time, you better believe in pretty much any given 3D fighter, a lot of the mids are a lot of the best attacks in the game. And if you're just crouch blocking all the time, that means you're free to every single mid coming your way. So if you default to crouch block, you're gonna get blown up non-stop because every mid is just gonna absolutely crush you. The default, what you should be aiming for, is always stand blocking. And that's gonna be different than how you're used to it, but this is a trait you need to learn in a 3D fighter. When you're stand blocking, you'll have to deal with the highs. You don't get to evade them like you do if you duck, right? That's fine. And you get to block those mids, which is really important. And as for lows, are you going to eat the odd low while you're stand blocking all the time? Yeah, that's kind of by design. A lot of lows that are quick pokes, you're not really going to be able to react to them. That's kind of the cost of doing business. But a lot of the bigger lows that lead to full combos and launchers, those are the ones that are slow, and those are the ones you get to react to. So it's kind of inverse from 2D fighters. 2D fighters, you crouch block and you react to the slow overhead. Here, you'll stand block and react to the big slow low that'll do the big combo. So all that said, if you smell a big high coming, by all means, crouch it, right? If you know it's coming, yeah, crouch is the best way to defeat it. But only do it if you know it's coming. So he can hold back the block just like any 2D fighter. There's also neutral blocking, where if you don't hold anything, you'll just default to stand block. There's some weaknesses to that, so don't always rely on it, but it is there if you don't want to cede ground by walking backwards. So that's good. But that's the big core thing about blocking in 3D fighters. Mids are very scary. They're not boring and honest like they are in 2D fighters. They all count as overheads in 2D terms. So you're going to default to stand blocking instead of crouch blocking. React where you can, make the callouts where you can, but otherwise you got to unlearn the whole hold down back forever syndrome of 2D fighters. All right, now that part one's out of the way, let's talk more about the 3D part of the 3D fighter, right? Obviously, big arena to work in, lots of different arenas, all that kind of stuff. But the thing that really matters as far as like the 3D part goes is it gives the defender a lot more options. Both with the attack height, as we mentioned earlier, but also the actual 3D part of, well, the 3D game, right? So let's take any given 2D fighter, doesn't particularly matter which, we'll go Street Fighter for argument's sake here, and the concept of frame traps, right? Having advantage on block moves, very powerful. And generally speaking, how the frame trap game usually works in Street Fighter is, I gain XYZ advantage frames on you, so it's my turn. End of story, right? If you try to hit a button, then I try to hit a button, I'm gonna win. End of story. And your only recourse out, generally speaking, is some sort of defensive move. Be it an invincible Shoryuken, maybe you have a move with like a specific defensive property that gets you out of dodge, whatever it may be. But either it's you do something or you just sit and wait. And if you sit and wait too much, when it's my turn, when I have the frame advantage, then I'm just going to throw you, right? If you're just being a little too passive. That's how that works. Generally speaking, in a 2D fighter, when someone has frame advantage, that's kind of the game at that point, right? The defender has little input other than maybe I'll do something invincible, I'll do a super, whatever it may be. Either that or I'm just going to play passive and wait out the storm, right? The difference here between that and a 3D fighter is the defender has a lot more things they can do. So here, Paul's going to do forward 1+2. And this leaves him at, well, frame advantage, right? So it's just like any scenario in a 2D game. Here specifically, he's +3. So if he tries to hit a button after the fact, after I block here, I try to mash, say, 1. It also forces crouching, so I'm doing a while standing move. But yeah, he's going to win because he has the frame advantage. That's how it works, just like a 2D fighter. So here, because he's specifically going for highs, I can just duck it. Like no bigs, right? I can just duck it. So the rules of attack heights here work out in my favor. If I know this is what's happening, I can just duck it, wait him out, and then bop him on the other side of things. Cool. But hey, Paul's a smart cookie. So now if we try to duck, he'll go for a mid instead. So that's no good. That definitely means I can't just duck it like we did the other ones, right? I get bopped in the head. And same deal here. He's still frame advantage. If I try to hit him, I'm going to get bopped in the head too, right? So we still have that scenario. So what do I do now? Well, this is where the 3D part comes into play because I can just sidestep this stuff, right? If I know this move is coming, it's a little bit slower than his just stand 1-2. And there's not as much tracking on this move. So because this is a 3D game, I can literally just sidestep out of the way. That's great for me. And then on the other end of things, I'll sidestep and then I'll punch him. Now, of course, there's layers on layers on layers here, right? So what if he introduces a move with a little bit of tracking? One where if I try to, sidestep out of the way, he might get me. Well, Paul has the infamous Demo Man, which is a very strong low that goes into its own can pre-hit combo, right? So here we are. I block the plus move. I'll try to step, and now I get blasted. And there's a lot of damage for a low. Now, sure enough, the game being the game, you can jump the low, right? And why go for the big jump when you can do, say, a hopping attack? So yes, I could block if I know it's coming. Sure, that's an option, but you can also just choose to take the initiative, go over the low, crush the low, and attack them on the other end of things. So compared to the usual 2D thing of I block the move that has plus frames, and my options are simply do something invincible if another attack comes, or just wait it out and hope they don't throw me, right? We have a lot more options here, and this is universal for the most part, right? You can duck under the highs, even though they have frame advantage. You can step a move, even though they have the frame advantage. You can go over a low. Like, you can do a lot of things. And of course, there's character specifics too, right? A lot of characters have counterattacks. So if you know what's coming next, you can just literally counter their attack. Pretty simple, even if they have the frame advantage. And a lot of people have what we call power crushes. This is like armor. This is like a focus attack or a drive impact, something like that, right? And pretty much everyone has at least one move that has armor on it. So this is Tekken specifically, not so much like Virtua Fighter or whatever, right? But if you know what's coming, you can armor through it too, just like a 2D fighter. So defensively, thanks to the attack height system, thanks to just actual 3D movement and all that, the defender generally has a lot more things they can do in a game like Tekken compared to a 2D fighter. And that's one of the things that adds a lot of depth to the system. Just because you're plus 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it may be, doesn't mean what you're doing is necessarily guaranteed. Doesn't mean they just have to sit there and like it unless they have an invincible Shoryuken to back them up. There's almost always an option. And that's one of the big things. And once again, too, this is pretty much always going to be universal as well, minus some character fun specifics. You don't have to just sit there and take it. Maybe you guess wrong. Maybe you don't make the right call and then you get blown up for it. Sure, that's fighting games, right? But you'll almost always have something you're able to do. You don't just always have to sit there and take it. Now, another big thing that intimidates a lot of people just going to 3D fighters in general is the move list. So we go into our move list here and they can get pretty long, right? And that's intimidating because, you know, oh, hey, we got 99 moves. And that seems like a lot, right? You think in like Street Fighter terms, Guilty Gear terms, like, well, I only have 3, 4, or 5 special moves. That's it. I only have 5 moves. But you can't think of it in those terms. You're doing better than you think. Like in Street Fighter, do you only really have 3 or 4 or 5 moves? No, you have all your normals too, right? And in a 6-button game, 6 standing normals, 6 crouching normals, 6 jumping normals, let alone whatever command moves you have. Every special move usually has 3 variants of different timings, spacings, speeds, frame data, all that kind of stuff. It actually is somewhat analogous to this. Because yes, you may have a lot of moves, but you know, everything has their own specific use. And to be frank, honestly, most characters you can dump about half the moveset in any given 3D fighter. Because there's the moves that matter and kind of the moves that don't. Just like any given game, there's going to be characters that have moves that are just more efficient than other moves, right? So a lot of times in the old days, we would break this down into your top 10 moves. These are the moves you have to focus on. And any 3D fighter you're going to play, it's going to be much the same. Focus on the moves that are important. Say we go through King's move list here, right? This one's going to be a big one. Do you need to know everything here? No, you don't. I would suggest, you know, finding players that you think are good with the character, see what they use a lot, right? Are you going to need to know all these 180 moves? No, you're not going to need to know all these. A lot of these are chain grabs. A lot of these are kind of self-redundant. Like, you know, not everything's going to be used. There's important moves and there's not important moves. Now, that said, one of the things that will happen in any fighter, 3D fighter, is you will get knowledge checked, because sometimes you're going to play someone who's going to use one of those moves that are quote-unquote not good. And when they use the not good move, it's not going to be something you're going to know, right? You'll see it and like, wait a second, I know that, but no good King player uses this move, except because no good King player uses this move, you don't know the frame data, you don't know how plus or negative it is on block, you don't know much about it. This will happen. This is a knowledge check, right? Like, is Ryu always going to do the fireball and Hadoken? Sure. And they might have their own properties, right? Different buttons have different invincibilities, all that kind of stuff, different damage values, different frame disadvantage on block, all that. But a Shoryuken still is kind of a Shoryuken. Sometimes when you're hit with something more esoteric, like all these weird chain grabs, you kind of just have to know. And if you don't know, well, after you lose, go hit training mode and find out, basically. So yeah, in the end, the big move lists are not as intimidating as you think. You can really condense down the moveset to the moves that actually matter and the ones that don't. Although keep in mind, just every now and then, you're going to get hit by some of the ones that don't matter and realize you don't actually know anything about them. Now, the other really big thing about 2D versus 3D is the stages. So the stages here in 3D fighters tend to matter a lot. They're more than just set dressing. So in any given 2D fighter, with a few different examples like Injustice, right? The 2D stage is kind of just set dressing. That's not a bad thing, but it's just there to be in the background. You have your middle, you have the corner. If you're in the corner, generally you have more pressure, better combos, all that kind of stuff. And for some stages, that's kind of how this works here too. Okay, I got you to the corner, you hit the wall, I get a bit more damage than otherwise. If I was mid-screen, I would get a combo that would do not maybe as much damage. So just like a 2D fighter, corner equal more damage, that's great. But there's a lot of particulars. Not so much Tekken, but in some 3D fighters like Soul Calibur or Virtual Fighter, there's ring outs. If you go to the end of the stage, you die. That's the end of the game. That's all there is to it, right? So those you really got to watch out for. In Tekken, a lot of stages have their own unique rule set. So say this combo here. Now, you see that combo? They fell down and they bounced, and I can start a whole new rep. That's going to lead to damage much more than just the regular combo. And this is specific to this stage. Ground bounces like that and the ground break, you will not find on every stage. So this stage matters a lot. And while you're working your way down here throughout all the various stages, eventually you keep going down, and there will be a point where that combo will stop working because now we're at the bottom level, right? So many stages can be multi-tiered. Some stages here have ledges where if I smash you through the corner, you're going to fall down, bounce, and I can keep getting a combo. So you see the bounce here? And then I can just combo them after the fact, right? So playing around with the 3D aspect going to your advantage here. I want you on this specific part of the corner because I know this corner will break over the ledge and I can get a bigger combo. You want to aim for that kind of stuff. Sometimes stages can just be truly infinite. No matter how far away you go, no matter how much you combo your enemy, there is no wall, there's no stage interaction. It is simply the endless void, right? So characters that have exceptional movement really tend to excel in these kind of stages simply because they can play keep away all day and they'll never back themselves into a corner. So if you want to abuse a life lead and just play runaway all day forever, that's potentially a thing, because if they can't catch you and the time runs out, that's game over. So the stage matters a lot more in a 3D fighter than it generally does in a 2D fighter, and you have to play stage to stage to your benefit. And those are some of the differences between 2D fighting games and 3D fighting games. Obviously, every fighting game, regardless 2D or 3D, they all have their own set of rules, and you have to play within those rule sets. So every game has its own thing to learn. But 2D and 3D have this kind of unique divide, and hopefully the things I've shown you in this video help you understand that divide. If you've only ever played Guilty Gear and are looking forward to Tekken 8, there's a bit of a hurdle, but it's not as bad as you think. A lot of what you learned will carry over despite the kind of genre shift. There's some particulars to it, but it's not that bad. So if you're looking to make the shift over to 3D fighters, giving a 3D fighter a chance, hopefully this guide helped you out. And otherwise, Tekken 8 will be out soon. Maybe by the time you're watching this, it's already out. I don't know. But Tekken 8, cool game, it would seem. And that all said, well, I guess that's it for the video. So hey, leave a like if you liked the video, and otherwise, well, thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some fighting games.